One, two, 1, 2.
Check, check.
Check, check, check. Yes, we're fully rolling. This is RSS, the only feed you need. That's that's the tagline. That's how we're rolling.
I love it.
So you're the second person to know about that. So
I'm into it.
As soon as these start getting broadcasted, everyone else will know laugh also.
It's going to be the hashtag, yeah.
So yes, welcome to the next episode of RSS. We've got man like Colin, aka Spurz.
What's Gucci, baby?
There you go. So yeah, as with previous shows, we're going to kind of talk through about Colin and the way he has kind of had a relationship with music and a bit of an upbringing, and we're going to talk about his album that just came out the other week, which is excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sponsored content.
Sponsored content. There you go. Yeah, go and check it out. We'll do more shout outs and stuff as well. So, yeah, we've got some unofficial sponsors here. Just to help the conversation flow. Not that we'll need it, but yeah, I'll stop talking and we can jump right in. So, yeah, kind of for those that don't know or are kind of hearing about you for the first time, maybe give a little bit of background, like where you're from, where you grew up, and kind of your relationship and entry point with music for the first time.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Colin. I produce under Spurz. I'm originally from a very small town in Canada, in British Columbia. Closest reference point that most people are going to know is Vancouver, where I did live for about 4 years, and then I made a move to the UK.
Nice.
So from a small town, really didn't have a lot of exposure to club culture, or electronic music in general. It's just a standard.
Paint the picture. Picture. I've never been. I've never been to Canada either.
It's a bleak picture, but it's also a really nice picture. I mean, it's picturesque. My hometown is pretty picturesque. It's a very small town, Canada. But like not a lot going on.
What sort of population is it? Like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands?
Oh, I mean,
are we over a million?
That's
how's it
on the spot. I mean, the town I'm from is actually called Winfield.
Cool.
And I mean, I wouldn't even know what the population is, but if it's like 10,000, I mean it's got to be less than that. It's tiny. It's
cool.
Tiny.
So pretty kind of
it's rural for sure. It's rural. Yeah. I mean, I grew up with a lot of like farmland and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just a really kind of quaint small town. So my first exposure to my parents are both kind of music heads.
Sure.
My dad's like more of like a blues guy. That's his kind of vibe. It's like blues and early classic rock and stuff like that. Anything past about 1980, he couldn't give two shits about.
Yeah, does not compute.
It's just for him, like that's just it. That's where it cut off. My mom was a bit more of like a pop person, kind of like that kind of vibe. So she's a little bit more open to kind of electronic music. She was she into a little bit of the synth poppy stuff like that in the 80s. So
kind of early 80s, the sort of more electronic sound started coming through.
Yeah,
right?
no, I mean not super deep cuts, but as things started to get a little bit more electronic, I guess my first exposure to music would have been through them, and then through like
so MTV. A strong mix of blues and pop.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like it's funny. Like to this day, sometimes I just I can't hear. I just feel like I've heard every blues record that's ever been made, and I just can't listen to it anymore.
Yeah, you've maxed out for now.
I'm kind of maxed out. I think I'm kind of at my limit. But yeah, so I mean that was kind of my first exposure to music, and then when it got into like looking towards dance music, like my mom was actually did like some aerobics instruction.
Okay,
that was like something that was,
they always love a 4/4 or something kind of.
So it was this weird kind of like yin and yang thing because it would be like she hates dance music, like she always calls it like circle music because she says it goes in like a circle.
Like so repetitive.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, she's like, but I can't deny that it's got a really good beat for like what I'm doing. And so like I got a lot of these like early like dance mix compilations. And I mean, like, there was some house music cuts and stuff like that. Like, I definitely remember hearing, like, you know, Frankie Knuckles, like, whistle song and stuff like that.
Yeah, the
but
stuff
then,
that kind of crossed over.
Yeah, but then there was also, like, a fairly heavy, like, Euro trash kind of, like, just really
throwaway.
Well, I mean, this is back, like, I remember when I was a kid, it was just called, like, dance music or electronic music. Like, I mean, I'm sure elsewhere there were all the subgenres and stuff like that. But for me, my exposure was just like, this is just dance music.
Yeah.
And so we had kind of like, Canada had our version of MTV, and it was called Much Music, and that was kind of our thing. And we actually had like
did you not have MTV at all then, or was it like
you could get it, but it was like a specialist channel, like
like a pay-per-view,
kind of, yeah,
like an extra subscription?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So Much Music was available to everyone, and so they did compilations, and then they also had like this show called Electric Circus, which was kind of like our version of, like, it was just like a dance music show where it would just have like live dancers and stuff like that. And
also like similar to like the New Dance Show or
exactly.
Train.
It was our version of like the New Dance Show, but much
is there footage of that on YouTube?
Oh yeah, it's there somewhere.
What's it called again?
Electric Circus. If you trust me, it's there.
Yeah.
And it is
for those who are listening and watching, go check it out. I'm gonna go check this out afterwards.
Some gold. I mean,
I'm obsessed with the New Dance Show. So anything like that, that's like a little sort of rabbit hole into.
Oh yeah. And they used to bring on people, like, I remember they had like Alice DJ doing a live performance,
a
live PA of like
Better Off
Alone. Yeah, exactly. And just some stuff where you're like,
wow,
oh
yeah, that was like around 98, 97, 98
yeah.
or something.
Yeah, and I think they had Darude at some point do like a live thing. It was weird, like they were just bringing in
all those
people.
Yeah, maybe those, I mean, those tracks were like huge chart hits in the UK at the time. So obviously, if they'd crossed over,
they were big crossover. We got we got a lot of British crossover. Like we got a lot. Actually,
it was around the same time. Maybe it was a bit before. Oh, I can't remember. I should know the exact year, but Paul Johnson Get Down was like in that sort of time frame with sort of like big vocal house. Obviously, his was like a lot more kind of authentic take, whereas Alice DJ was a bit more not so much. Yeah, like you say, kind of Euro trance trash, however you wanna.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
So I mean, that was so that was kind of my introduction, and for me, like, because I think it was because my mom hated it. It had that kind of feel for me to be like, oh, this is kind of like that punk rock feel for me, where I was like, I mean, I was just like, this is something my mom doesn't like, so I will just play it as loud as possible. Yeah. And same thing with hip hop.
Active rebellion.
Like, I hate hip hop, so I'd be like, let's crank this shit. Yeah. I was like, this is great. Like, punk music's whatever. Like, she's like, I don't know, it's fine. But that for me, I was like, oh, this is how I can get under the skin. This is it. So I just turned that up, and she's like, I don't know why you listen to this. Like,
how was that? Like, did your mum kind of ever come round to sort of like, or did she just sort of like tolerate it because
she's come around to my stuff?
yeah.
I'll send her music. She's like, this is great. I'm like, you didn't even listen to this, but like that's my mom's. Glowing review of my music is always that it has a good beat. That's it. That's how I know that's her. Like, yeah, that's a
consistent feedback.
Beat. It's like, yeah, thanks, Mom. I appreciate that. You know.
Cool.
I didn't send you anything with drums, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's still got a good beat.
Cool. Thanks,
she's just
Mom.
making up the beat.
Thanks,
it's fine.
Mom. Yeah.
Cool. So what was your? I mean, obviously that was the kind of I assume like the sort of early years, like and I suppose exposure to that program being an entry point for dance music, like kind of what age were you around that time, and was that kind of before you started going out? And
oh yeah, that would have definitely been before I started going out. Like I think
like sort of early to mid-teens maybe. Was
that would be about right. Yeah, I can't remember the exact ages. I'm pretty terrible with numbers, but
cool.
But yeah, that would have been kind of around that time, and like I mean, even in that case, like Toronto had a pretty healthy rave scene back then.
Cool.
You had guys like Tiga and stuff like that doing a lot of like Toronto raves at the time.
Yeah.
But it never bled over into like anywhere where I was. I mean, I know Vancouver at the time would have had some rave stuff going on, but I mean, I was so far removed from that. Like there was no chance of like I don't have stories of being like 16 and being like, oh, and they got into like underground clubs. Like it's not happening.
Yeah. So what was your first kind of like clubbing experience?
Oh, then? Terrible top 40 clubs. Just awful. I was actually talking to
listening to the same tunes that were on Electric.
Oh, not even. No, we're like I'm like top 40 pop stuff.
Yeah,
pop and hip hop. And then it was just like I remember I was talking to someone yesterday and I was like, when I was going out, we didn't have the full smoking ban in clubs yet. So you had a dedicated smoking room.
Okay.
And
where
it was just like, it was bleak. Like you'd go in the back and it would just be this like cloudy haze that you could kind of see people through. And you'd be like, I think my friend's in there. And then the door would open and it would just be this huge cloud of smoke just drifting out. Yeah, it was just awful. But yeah, so that was really the only exposure I had. We had that. We had some country bars and some classic rock bars, and that was about it. I mean, we had like 4 choices. I think that was it, like 4 actual nightclubs.
Yeah, so kind of like, you said, 4 very kind of set and laid out options.
Exactly,
for you.
yeah.
So was there, were you kind of in a position to be able to travel to like a nearest city once like you kind of like started to figure things out? And like, how did you kind of venture into the kind of club world or connect with the club world that you're kind of a part of now?
Well, I mean, Vancouver's only about 4 hours away by car. So, I mean, when I started driving, like, I definitely had that option. But it wasn't really until I moved out of my town. I moved to a different city in Canada. I moved to Edmonton, Alberta, which is one of the prairie states. And so at that point, I kind of started going out a little bit more. They didn't have any better clubs, but I started kind of throwing raves with the label that I run with my roommate Jesse, one of my best friends. So we started doing events there, and they had we would start to go out to events like that. I mean, I'd pop down to Vancouver for occasional stuff, but it was just I never really had that opportunity to go to like something consistently because it just wasn't there. So
you just kind of went ahead and did your own thing.
It's all just I just never had that option to like. We didn't have like a fabric. We didn't have any version of that where you're just like, oh yeah, we're gonna go.
Everyone must go there, or there's like a rite of passage for someone to make a pilgrimage somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's nothing quite like that. So for us, it's just kind of like.
But that's cool. You kind of went from just kind of getting involved to like doing your own parties then.
That was kind of it. I mean, there wasn't a lot of options, so you just kind of do your own thing. Yeah. So, yeah.
Cool. So tell us about that then. What were those nights like, and what stuff were you playing, and had you started producing by that point?
Oh yeah, I had been producing by that point for quite some time. Like I actually started producing in high school.
Okay.
That would have been.
Did you study music?
I went on to study music.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I initially started I've been playing guitar for about 15 years now or something like that.
Nice. You still play?
Yeah. I mean, when I say that, I'm not as good as you think someone would be for doing something for 15 years. It's like, I always have to preface that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I also played I had to play alto saxophone.
Make you do a solo now.
Oh, yeah. Do Freebird. But no, I played saxophone for a while. So I did the traditional kind of band stuff.
Yeah.
But some friends of mine were kind of into when later on in high school, we started to get into Ed Banger and stuff like that, and some people had gotten imports of Mr. Wazo's first kind of stuff, and
so
Mr.
early
Flash.
2000s.
Yeah, exactly. And then along with that, we were kind of we were looking at some UK music magazines and so production magazines. And I remember getting a copy of, I can't remember if it was from the magazine or if it was a bootleg version, but I mean I got the early version of Fruity Loops.
Cool.
And so started.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember those production magazines. Those don't seem to exist anymore unless I'm not looking. I don't think
so. Yeah.
But they always used to have a cover CD.
Yeah. Sample packs or something in a lesson.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thinking back actually, because I was around that and experienced that, but it was my mate who was doing that, and I wasn't, because I never really, at that point, I didn't really kind of click that I wanted to make music, but I saw my mates doing that, and I suppose it's quite a good way, actually, of encouraging people to make music, giving them the whole sampler thing.
Yeah, even if it's a light version of Ableton still does it. You can get all their stuff for free for 30 days. But yeah, being able to give someone the light version of a software and here's 5 Paul Oakenfold samples, and you can make your own trance track or whatever, and you're like, oh, this is cool.
Make your own Big Brother theme tune.
Yeah, exactly.
If you dare. So that was kind of the entry point then. So those tech magazines were kind of the jump off point for you.
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
Being curious with creating sound, leading on from playing instruments.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And
cool.
so then I messed around a bit in high school. I didn't take it super super seriously at the time, but I was I really enjoy doing this. It's fun. I made a bunch of little weird stuff. And then when I was done,
have you still got any of that?
I don't know. God, I lost that PC years ago, decades ago. But So from that, I then went on and I did study studio engineering. So
cool.
I have a degree in like audio engineering and studio sciences and whatever you want to call it. That
Cool. How is that? I mean, I've never really. I did a kind of crash course by getting into production that way, so I didn't really kind of get too much into the technical side of it. So still feel like I'm like producing in the dark.
Yeah.
But yeah, how was that?
It was good. I mean, it's the type of thing like. Any type of technical program like that, I feel like you could definitely learn it online yourself.
Yeah.
But being able to have access to an actual recording studio and learn how acoustics work and mic techniques, mic placements.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was super helpful, and being able to do that with my own mixes and mix downs and know what to listen for. And I did some studio engineering work for a while. I was
cool.
working in a studio in Edmonton. Yeah, I was doing like some production stuff.
So was that in and around college or uni then? Or?
That would have been after uni, yeah.
Cool.
So that would have been like a college course, and then I went. And then when I moved to Edmonton, I was working for a while in a studio doing like engineering, like a lot of like kind of pop punk and hardcore bands. Actually,
I bet that was kind of invaluable experience.
Absolutely,
though, right?
yeah,
like without that, like sort of on hands kind of learning sort of thing, it's like. Yeah, you pick. I think you pick up stuff quite quickly. I find I have by like sort of shadowing people, like, or just being there when music's being made. Especially before I started making music. So.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. Like, I mean, it's it's something that you could definitely learn online, but when you can put hands on things and you can see, oh, this is a direct correlation between like doing this and this comes out of the speakers, like that's invaluable, because otherwise it's just guesswork.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all just theory at that point.
And until you compare against the theory, then you don't really know whether what you're doing is right or wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Which there's kind of I feel like there's an element of fun in that.
Oh, absolutely.
I think after time you kind of want to actually be able to understand what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
So you can maximize how you.
Yeah, exactly. Then you're not wasting time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I felt for years that I was like, I don't know, I'm still learning like about mixing down.
Oh yeah,
sounds
I mean that's you're
now.
always
Like,
learning.
Exactly.
You never just get.
But I think when I've had like a certain breakthrough, it's like, God, like how was I even like?
How was I doing it before?
How was I doing it before? When you take a bit of a step forward. So I suppose moving on from that, then what were the sort of first like sounds you were making, and was it all Paul Oakenfold samples?
No,
or?
you know what? Like I think initially, like it was a lot of kind of trying to do like. I mean, Timbaland was so big back at that time, and I think a lot of that Fruity Loop stuff was kind of like you were either making like dance music or you were trying to make like kind of like 90s R&B pop. So for me, like it was a lot of kind of what I had been hearing. So kind of like housey music type stuff, but it's just like Fruity Loops is just a weird program to use. So it's just kind of getting stuck in.
Yeah.
And then later on, I started to kind of be a little bit more focused on like actually making something that sounded cohesive as opposed to just weird jams and stuff like that. So
cool. So when did you first kind of start working under the Spurz moniker?
You know what? When would that have been? I was in Edmonton at the time, so this would have been like maybe 5-6 years ago, something like that.
Cool.
And then like putting a moniker to it and being like, this is going to be like somewhat of a project underneath. So I started doing some remixes. Like I did an XX remix that ended up doing really, really well randomly, kind of first off the bat. And then, and it's just kind of taken off from there. And I mean, it's never really stuck in one particular sound. I used to do some, some houseier stuff. I used to do a little bit of like Dembao Moombaton type stuff. I kind of do whatever I want because it's me under a moniker, which makes it a bit hard sometimes because people are like, oh, we want to book you for this, and you're like, but we know you from this.
Yeah.
And so you're like, well, I could do what you want. I can do anything you want. I can DJ. I can DJ anything you want. I've got a wide scope of music, so it does make it tricky. But yeah, so that's kind of...
Yeah, it does. I think there's a bit of people seem to want to be able to like categorize.
Yeah, well, I mean, and fair enough.
Fine,
if you're like, we're doing a techno night and you're not known as a techno DJ, like I can see where they're like, it's going to be hard to convince people to come out if they can't Google you and it just comes up with techno next to your name, right?
Yeah.
But I've been DJing techno for a long time. Like I love techno and I collect a lot of techno, but people don't know me from that particularly, right?
Yeah.
So, but it is a huge influence in what I do.
Maybe you should do a techno mix for the label for us.
Yeah, I can do whatever you want.
I think that sounds like a great idea. Cool. You heard it here first. It's coming. So yeah, I suppose with the first sorts of productions then, like, you know, were there any particular references when you were or were you just kind of going with the flow, or
I guess, yeah.
Have you got any kind of methods or?
For me, it just kind of depends. Like a lot of the time, like I will kind of, sometimes I'll use like an image or images as a point of reference, whether I'm, if I'm making something that's a bit more textural, I kind of start with the textures that I'm trying to work with, create like a sound palette, and then work out from there. Like just start going and saying, okay, these are like the low end elements that I want, not necessarily this particular kick drum or this particular sound or this whatever. Like, I'm just trying to get the low end colors, if you will, sketched in, and then, maybe I want these textures and these tones. It really depends. Sometimes it'll be, drum driven, and it'll be like, I like this percussion loop that I found, or I like this.
Yeah, and you kind of build around that.
Yeah, and kind of build around it. Or it might be like, this is a melodic element that I found, or this synth patch is cool. Like it really kind of just depends.
Yeah. So it can I suppose the inspiration can come from anywhere.
It really does, yeah. And it's just some of it can just be like, either it'll be like, I've read something that kind of struck me, and then making a musical accompaniment to that, or just kind of, it really just depends. It can come from anywhere. So when did you put out the first Spurz EP?
The
first one I put out, I think we put it out on Drama Hands. So that was just like a really small release. And then there were a couple after that. Was there? And that's going way back. So there was that one on Drama Hands, and then I think the next big one would have been kind of the Apothecary release. Like I had a few kind of in between. I did one on Tesseract Pool. Cool. That one did pretty well. But the first big one would have been like kind of the Apothecary one, the Loud Futures one, which was 2 years ago now, I think.
Nice.
I think.
Trying to like trace back the time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so bad with years. I'm like, how old am I again? I can't remember. When did this happen?
So let's talk a little bit about the new album then.
Sure.
Yeah. So what was the starting point for that?
Well, this one is Drifter, which is out on Offect, which is a label in Vancouver. So actually, a lot of the ideas kind of followed Loud Futures. I had some kind of initial leftover B-sides and stuff like that, and they didn't quite fit with what I was trying to do on Loud Futures. So this one kind of carried over. I wanted to do a little bit more dub style production, where it was stripping everything back and then using kind of reverb and echo to kind of fill out the space.
Amplify,
to really strip things back and just say like, okay, these are going to be 7 elements for the whole song, as opposed to trying to cram in a ton of stuff. That's been, I remember when I first started, I had a really busy
fill the space.
Yeah, I was just like, I just want every sound I can find in here, and a lot of quick switches in between parts and abrupt drops and stuff like that. And so now looking at what I do, it does tend to be a little bit more of kind of 1 or 2 main ideas, and it's a bit more driven by reverb and delay. There's a documentary with Pink Floyd actually, where Roger Waters says in his work in the production, like he says, you have to leave room for the echoes, and I think that's really important, is just giving the song space to breathe. And I think that's one thing, especially when it comes to electronic and dance music, is it's there is this kind of thought to fill it with as much sound as you can, peak the levels right up, compress the hell out of it, and there's no room for dynamics.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the stuff that we're listening to and we're making isn't necessarily being enjoyed on a home speaker system where you're like, I want the dynamics of this. But for me, I take a lot of, and this, I mean, it probably comes from studio background,
of
but
course, yeah.
I like having the dynamics of being like, oh, like this is just a quiet part and it's not quiet, but then boosted through the roof. And it's all at the same level. Like I like a little bit of dynamics in my tunes. So.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's something that I feel like I'm learning more and more, only more recently. And like, yeah, I look back at some of my old EPs and it's like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's always a progression, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like you can look
curve,
back and be like, oh my God, what was I doing? But it was like, you were making what you thought was the best stuff at the time. And you know what? And you put it out. And that's the thing. Like, I know a lot of people who will make a lot of great music and then just never put it out because they're afraid of being like,
I think you need to get it out there.
This is a stamp in time. And then this is, you know, I was only this good at this point. But like, that can be a point of reference. Like, you
exactly.
can look back and be like, that was a little cheesy. What was I doing with that snare drum or whatever? But yeah, so for this record, like it's been more of like a low end focus. There's a lot more kind of sub frequencies going on. It's meant to be a little bit more meditative. It's still heavy and it's still like pretty punishing when it comes to the low end.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of
varying range of tempos and stuff.
Yeah,
as well.
I mean, it goes from about 140 up to about 160. There's some bits in there that honestly I just kind of put together because I found the bridge between going from something like dubstep and grime into something like footwork and jungle isn't always the easiest because you're
transition.
So you've got kind of a weird like, you know, a weird 10 BPM flex in there. So there's a couple that are about at 150, 155, just because they helped me transition into getting a little bit faster and going into like jungle drum and bass.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, these are why they're on there.
Yeah, kind of functional.
Yeah,
like,
they're functional tools.
Like you've like info from being out in the wild. And
yeah,
like,
exactly. And being like, well, you know, it's nice to have a couple of these in the back.
Something,
It's just be in the back and have something in the back pocket and be like, all right, this is cool. I can, you know, transition up, hit that song, and then transition up further or whatever. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's cool to, I suppose, coming at it from obviously a more technical kind of perspective in terms of production, but then obviously like practicality in terms of DJing. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of that centered around obviously some of the music and a lot of the music that we make. So yeah, it's kind of it's kind of interesting to talk about it in that way. So obviously the album, you say that's out already?
It's out
it's already out. Yeah, I thought so. So so what's next? Have you got any other upcoming projects you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, I've got a few. I think I've got a really small EP that I'm going to be putting out, just like a Bandcamp freebie. I've got some tracks that I couldn't put on this one because there has some like pretty easily to spot samples that I probably wouldn't be able to get cleared. And I just like to have for me, I think releasing like a B-sides or a demos album following something major is always kind of fun for me. Like I like being able to be like, oh, these are the ones that didn't make it, but they're, for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's another part of the story, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll probably be throwing that out. And then I'm in the process of putting together like a live set, which is kind of taking up a lot of my time right now.
Cool. You still working out the setup?
I'm still working out the setup. Yeah, it's going to be mainly an Octatrack driven set. So an Octatrack is a live performance sampler.
Okay.
So I picked that up recently. It's got a bit of a learning curve. It's made by Electron, so I have their mono machine, which is like their mono synthesizer, which has a really steep learning curve, and I'm still scratching my head. So the performance sampler is going to be. I'm at a point now where I'm trying to figure out, like, a lot of the stuff that I've been doing lately has been kind of more textural and ambient, as opposed to kind of more beat driven. So I put out an EP before this current record called Vex to Rest on You, and that had a lot more kind of slower tempos, a little bit more ambient type stuff, and that's just where I've been leaning towards. Still heavy, but definitely kind of leaning a bit more less beatless.
Are you going to be able to play some of that stuff this afternoon?
Yeah, I've got some stuff in there. Yeah, so I'm still trying to figure out how I want to perform this, but it's definitely going to be a little bit less of a club setting.
Cool.
I'd still like to play it in clubs, but something that maybe incorporates more tape loops, outside gear. I don't want to have a huge hardware rig. Like, that's not really what I'm trying to do with this, because I don't need a modular setup. I don't need any of that. But I just want to. I just miss the performative element of, as much as I enjoy DJing and I'm still very much a DJ, like I do miss the performative element of something could go really wrong because I pressed the wrong button in a very real way.
I suppose with the CDJs and stuff, it's a lot. I mean, even just compared to like vinyl, it's a lot less kind of risky to a certain extent, unless you pull the wrong USB out. But it's kind of quite nice to have that sort of pressure that it could all just turn off at the next.
Yeah, I mean, like especially like when I made the move over from DJing from vinyl into digital, like it was the same thing where I was like, well, I can't knock the needle off by accident. Like I was like, oh, all right. Well, I guess, like you said, unless
I can have a few more drinks then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yes, that's a problem. But then, like you said, unless you unplug the wrong USB, there's kind of
risks are minimalized.
Yeah, it's pretty minimalized. So for me, I was like, I kind of missed that element of calling it danger silly, but you know what I mean. Like there's this, if I press this button, everything just stops, and then it all goes wrong, and then I got to figure out how I'm going to save this. Yeah. So so that's kind of where the live set's leaning. I'm still trying to figure out
when do you think you'll be ready to.
Goal is the end of the year. Goal is the end of the year. I'd like to have something giggable and maybe like an hour's worth of music for the end of the year. Now, whether that's like, ideally I'd like to have a couple of different sets. So if it's something like more of a sit down, more focused performance, have something a little bit different for that, and then have something that still works. Have another set that still works in the club, something similar to something like Fortet does, where it's like you're maybe not going to be dancing constantly, and the music might just stop at certain points when the song's over, but there's going to be a lot of danceable moments and stuff like that, if you want to call it that. So.
Yeah, cool. So it sounds like there's been a good flow, and you're kind of
It's just staying busy.
Yeah, just powering on with the next move. So one of the other topics I think we would be good to discuss is like kind of moving to the UK, the process around that. So you said you've been here 2 years now?
I've been here just over 2 years now.
Just over 2 years, and I hit you up about doing this just after I saw that you'd triumphantly just got a visa confirmed for 5 years here in the UK. Cool. Yeah. So tell us about the process when you moved over for the first time, and was the first visa just for 2 years? And just tell us about the process, because I'm sure there might be artists out there that want to understand how to move and the steps you have to take. Because if you do want to do that, I think it's quite easy to get lost in all of the blue tape, and
it is,
just kind of get overwhelmed by not having support. I'm sure you can probably pay people to do the work and put the service for you, but just talk us through the first move, which got you the first 2 year visa.
Yeah, sure. Well, being a Commonwealth citizen, I think it's available to all Commonwealth countries, but I might be wrong. It's really easy to get a youth mobility visa. So if you're under 30, you can get what's called a youth mobility visa, or a Tier 5 youth mobility scheme. And it used to be called like a working holiday visa, and they should probably name it back to that, because it makes it sound a bit more permanent than it is. Yeah. But basically, with that visa, if you're able to show that you have it's a really minimal amount in your savings account, and you don't have like a criminal record, like you can apply for that, and I can't remember what it cost. It wasn't all that expensive to get it, but it is like a work and play visa, and you can come over to the UK and you can live and work here, and you can do whatever job you want or
Yeah.
not have a job. And that allows you to stay here for up to 2 years.
Cool. So it allows you to work.
Yeah, you
But
can
also
work.
you don't have to work.
Yeah, if you were just coming over to hang out, you can do that too.
Okay, cool.
There's
So
no
it's-
work requirement.
Sure, but it does allow you to work if you need to.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, cool. And what was the sort of timeline? How long did that process sort of take for you?
You know what? It didn't take all that long. Like what had been happening? Like I had been working for the Canadian government for quite some time.
Yeah.
And then just due to like just a really long story, my contract with them kind of ended. I had the option that I could move back to another city that I had been living in and continue to work at a full-time job, or I could have stayed in Vancouver and I would have just had to resign. And so when I resigned, I had a little bit of money left over from savings, from like a severance. And I just looked at it and I was like, well, I have nothing's keeping me here. And it's really easy to get a visa in the UK.
Yeah.
Even if I just want to go over and try it out and see. So I just kind of on a whim decided to do that. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, the process didn't take that long because there's really no decision to be made. Like you just submit like a criminal record check and you show them like a bank statement and then you
That's
get
pretty
it
much
approved.
it, yeah.
Yeah, I think the process might have taken like a month, if that. Like it's
Cool.
not
So fairly quick.
it's
then.
yeah, because I mean, it's not meant to, like there's no permanence to the visa. Like they're very clear on there. Like you can't transfer it into anything more permanent. But
But it's limited to a 2 year.
It is,
then.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
And it's like you get 2 years straight up. Like you can't apply for anything. So you just get 2 years.
Okay, cool.
So as far as I know, anyways.
So what's the difference between that? Is there a difference between that and the visa you've just got?
Yeah. So what happened is at the end of the 2 years, I had been working for a job here, and I was hopeful that they were able to give me a work visa and like sponsor me for a work visa.
Sure.
The problem that you'll land on if you're here on a mobility visa, or even if you're trying to get a tier 2 work visa, which is like the standard kind of work visa for anyone, you'll come against, there's like a tiered skill set.
Okay.
And you have to fall on a certain level on that, and the job has to, there's a bunch of requirements, like the job has to pay a certain amount.
Yeah.
They have to have advertised it for a number of days, and then the company basically has to prove that you are able to do a job that a UK citizen can't.
Sure.
The company itself has to have a license to begin with. Like they have to apply for a license, so there's a cost involved. So it's a real hassle to get like a tier 2 work visa.
Sure.
It tends to be kind of medical fields, research fields. Those are kind of the job, or like management that kind of lands in those. So the job that I was doing just didn't qualify, and they were like, as much as we'd like to help you out, there's really nothing we can do.
Yeah.
So I looked into this. I had seen it before. They don't really advertise it because it's a super niche visa.
Yeah.
But it's a tier 1 exceptional talent visa.
Sure.
So it's available to the arts, sciences,
Business, is
humanities, tech, and you know what? There's like 5 categories, I think.
Sure.
It's a super limited number of visas. Like I think there's 2,000 for all categories combined every year,
Okay.
and then it's split up in two sections of each year.
Yeah.
But because they're like a very niche visa, like not a lot of people apply for them.
Sure.
So
Like the odds are a bit higher?
I wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, well, that's kind of it. Is like the qualifications that you have to meet are, like, I mean, I can only speak for the arts one because that was the one that I applied for. I know sciences was pretty crazy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it is kind of a really particular visa, not everyone is going to qualify for it. So not everyone's bound to apply for it.
Yeah.
So I think I did some research, and I think like the acceptance rate was like 78% or something like that.
Oh,
so it was
pretty high.
So it was pretty high. So I took a shot at it. I mean, it wasn't it wasn't cheap, but I mean that was kind of it. I just took a Hail Mary and it kind of worked out. They just like the requirements aren't. When I looked at it initially, I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to qualify for this because they make it sound like you'd have to be like a
Yeah, do you have to
classical-
give like supporting documents to sort
You
of sort of justify your
You do.
exceptionality?
Yeah, which is like, oh god, but like
You are exceptional.
right? And that's like, could they call it anything else? But yeah, so you basically, in my case, for music, you had to show that like you had performed at internationally recognized like basically festivals or venues or concerts that you know were internationally recognized or nationally recognized. You needed to show proof of press, and then
did they ask for many examples of each of those things, or was
this
it just
is the thing, it's actually quite limited. Like you have like 10 documents overall.
Okay.
So like I just basically sent them like you know, some reviews of the record. I sent them some contracts from like South by Southwest, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was, and then you have to have 3 supporting letters. So you have to
have references.
Yeah.
Almost,
So you have to have someone from the UK and then someone from it's a bit of a hassle, but it's honestly, at the end of the day, when you look at it, it wasn't really all that difficult. And like you mentioned, like I think there are people that you could hire to do that for you, but honestly,
you don't need to.
You don't need to. You'd be throwing your money out the window. Like it's honestly,
it might be a bit tricky to navigate, but it's everything that you should.
I mean, the thing is, like it's not really that. They're not asking for a lot, but the document looks really imposing because it's a Home Office document. But because I worked for the Canadian government for so many years, I'm kind of like used to long form policy. So I was just like, oh, this actually isn't.
Okay, it's another long ass form.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, yeah, it's just a checkbox. Just make sure everything's there. So I mean, yeah, I was lucky in that I had the required stuff and I had the right people who were able to write documents for me. But it really is open to anyone worldwide. Like you don't have to be Commonwealth. You can come from anywhere. And like, at least from the art side of it, like it's not judged by the Home Office. Mm-hmm. The Home Office enlists a different governing body for each
category.
Each category, yeah. So for the arts, it's Arts Council England.
Okay.
So which is a real bonus because Arts Council England obviously has its kind of finger on the pulse of like what's going on in other events and stuff like that. So they have people on there who are familiar with like our scene. Yeah. So when I send them a thing where it's like I mentioned Mixmag, someone there knows what I'm talking about. Whereas like,
well, yes, globally renowned music magazine,
right?
But yeah, there's people there that understand.
But some you know, if it was everyone was like my mom's age, you know, then it would be like she'd be like, is that a? Oh, yeah, it sounds like a baking magazine. I don't know, right? So
monthly recipe book.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't know what this is. So I mean, they definitely got the right people involved, and I think the one real key takeaway from it is that there's really no hard and fast rule on what they will or won't consider.
Okay.
As
you just got to present your best case.
Exactly. It's just like a best case because I mean it's obviously like if you're applying from a different country than the UK or like the US, like your country is probably going to have its own kind of publications.
Like it'd be like more of a localized national publication.
Yeah, exactly.
That might not be globally recognized, but it's still like within context and hopefully within relevance to where you come from, not just because the governing body's based in the UK, they're going to think that
they
need to know about
heard of you.
So they'll do their research if they need to.
It is,
okay, cool.
There's a lot of national stuff that I would imagine would count.
Yeah.
You know?
So that kind of keeps it a bit more of a level playing field.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So that was the application for the most recent. So what is that? Is that a tier 2 work visa that you now have?
No, it's a tier 1 exceptional talent visa.
Exceptional talent visa. Yes. There you go.
Makes my mom proud.
Amazing, yeah. I bet she got it framed on the wall at home.
Yeah.
So we've got you here for another 5 years. That's great news. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, what are the plans? You're just going to kind of see how the next 5 years go and how it all rolls from there?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, we'll see where things go. I mean, right now, like, I'm really happy with London. It's great. I mean, it hasn't lost its charm yet. I mean, it's expensive and
it's very expensive.
It's very expensive and it's dirty. And I mean, there's a lot of other options in Europe that I could probably move to. But I mean, I've got everything I need here and I really enjoy it. So, but who's to say? I mean, the visa I have can be extended for another 5 years. I can also apply for citizenship if I want to, which comes with another set of like having to jump through hoops, and I have to do an English something test where I know like every king that you've ever had or something like that. Yeah,
I think probably most of the UK don't know that.
Yeah, I've had many people be like, I don't think I'd pass that test. Yeah. So.
So it's good to, yes, I mean, I think it's really important to like be able to talk about those things, because there might be people out there that are wanting to do the same thing, feel daunted by the task, and I think it's good to kind of just get it out there from someone that's gone through it.
Absolutely.
Done it recently as well, and as we were talking earlier, kind of a congratulations that you've just kind of dropped down part-time from your day job to kind of focus a bit more time on the music. And I think that's something else that's kind of key to talk about, which is, kind of trying to find a bit of a balance, really. I think, you naturally, even myself included, would like to have more time to be able to produce music, but you obviously need to pay the bills at the same time.
Absolutely.
So really finding that balance is quite tricky. And I suppose, I mean, how far into the sort of new working routine are you, and how's it kind of panning out?
I'm about a half a month in now, and it's really good. It's really nice to be able to just have a dedicated time to be able to carve out, I think most musicians and most producers, can relate to the fact that, like you said, you have to pay the bills somehow. We don't all get to do that as a day job, unfortunately, as much as we'd like to. But I think it's important to be able to carve out time for that. And I think it's so important for creativity, for mental health, to just to look at how much time are you spending on something that you don't actually want to do, and is there any way that you could restructure that? And that was kind of the way I looked at it. Well, and honestly, part of my visa requirement is that I do actually have to be able to show that I'm working on music. That's part of it. So it's nice to be able to point to something and be like, I actually have to do this.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that, kind of in writing.
Imposed in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of be like, well, I have to do this. But I think has been a real big part of it, is just looking like, all right, well, it's so easy to get wrapped up in your full-time work. And I think that, if you're a creative person, I think it can really be draining on your mental health to not have the time to do that.
Yeah, the access to be able to just
and I mean, as much as you'd like to be that person who's like, I come home from work and then I jump in the studio and I work until 2 a.m. I have gone through periods where I have no problem doing that.
Yeah.
I can't do it as much as I'd like to. Sometimes you come home after you hit the gym or something like that, you're just like, I'm just tired. I just don't want to do this right now. So it's nice to have a day or even a chunk of hours just set aside, and this is that time. I'm able to restructure things. And then if you get stuck doing something else at another time, you don't feel bad that you're missing out on your opportunity to make music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's definitely important. And like you said, it's kind of, I think it's kind of like, it almost feels like gold dust when trying to get that time, or that kind of like,
it's tough. And it's being able to structure and just say like, okay, how important is this to me? And I think that's been a big part of my whole outlook for the past few years, has just been like, this is something that I'm really passionate about. It's something that is obviously for me, I've always been a bit of a realist. I've never really been that guy who's been like, no, I don't need to work. The band's gonna make it, and
putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, and I mean, but sometimes that works out, and that's great, and sometimes I wish I could be that person. But looking realistically, it's like, I don't want to have to be scraping together pennies for rent, or being like, what am I going to do?
It takes the pressure off the work that you're producing a little bit. Then, if you can kind of be realistic and balance it out with another source of income, or however you kind of structure.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with an additional source of income. I think sometimes there's this thing where it's like, if you're not doing art full time and somehow making it work, it lessens what you're doing. It's like, that's a really privileged position to come from, to be able to be like, well, this is my thing,
and a false one to give to people that are kind of looking from the outside in and only see the sort of the social media,
of course. And that's we were talking off mic, that was the same thing, where it was just like, so much of that social media stuff can be really hazardous, because you're only getting the best of what someone's going through, right? And it's easy to think that, oh, this person's literally just doing this for a living, and it's like, well, probably not. And I think it's a dangerous thing to think that
that's the possibility.
Then that's what. And it's like, oh, this is the be all end all. And if you have to, work at a coffee shop 2 days a week, like that doesn't somehow
like
discounts you as an artist.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't need to be a dirty secret. We're in like late stage capitalism. We all have to work. Like
Yeah.
The roof's got to stay up,
Exactly.
Like camping's fine. I don't like sleeping outside on the regular. So,
yeah, I think that's, and again, that's part of kind of what I think this is all about. Really, is I just don't feel like there's enough resources. And when I was trying to do music full time, and I had a period and had a little bit of a financial cushion, it was just like. You're kind of just sort of out on your own trying to, and I suppose again that's part of it. You're just trying to make sort of ends meet in the best way possible.
Of course,
I think by having an alternative source of revenue or another project, I think it's just healthy all round.
Yeah.
Like unless you're completely, I don't know, flying and like
totally. If you're too busy to do anything else,
and the big checks are coming in and happy days
for sure, of course.
I think particularly in the sort of the corners that we're kind of, I suppose, operating within, which is like quite a niche sort of world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's call it what it is. I mean, it's it's niche. It's a more niche music than top 40, right? Like
yeah, exactly.
I don't think a lot of people are getting those top 40 checks rolling in. So I mean,
yeah, exactly.
If you were, that'd be great. But you know what? Like it's just you have to kind of be realistic as to where it is.
Yeah. I think the realism element is something that's definitely interesting and should be kind of talked about and appreciated a bit more, just because I think that's the element that kind of will help keep you on the right path.
I mean, there's
not
nothing
driving
wrong.
yourself nuts about why something isn't working, or just like over analyzing because I think that can be a tendency. It's like when you kind of solely rely on something, you're just analyzing things to try and get it to where it needs to be. And I think sometimes when you're not actually trying too hard is actually when sort of some of the magic and the fun happens.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When when you're not. So it's it's finding the balance is always this, it's the game of life, right? Just trying to
absolutely keep to make it work.
Yeah, just trying to make it work. Just trying
exactly.
To so
exactly.
So I suppose any more thoughts or kind of points on that topic that you feel like you haven't discussed or mentioned?
No, like I said, I think it's something that I'd like to see just a little bit more. A little bit more realism put into it, where it's just like, look, it's fine. Like, there's no like I said, if you can make that work, and that's something that you want to strive for, is like I think we all want to strive for that. Is just being like, I wish I could just do music all the time.
Yeah.
But if you're able to kind of rejig in your head how you look at success and say like, well, I'm able to carve out this much time a week to music. There's something successful in that, right? Like, and I think it is a game of small victories where you're just like, this is something that I'm able to do, and I'm counting that as a win.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be like, this is my only end goal, and if I can't make it, well, then why am I here? You know what I mean? Like, exactly. I think that's a big thing that people can shift really easily. Yeah,
exactly. And I think when I was talking with Oliver AMAX the other week, and he was kind of saying a sort of a slightly similar thing, but it just sort of depends on what people's expectations are as well. It's like, if you want to be balling, then fine, but you might be able to live off, and have like a pretty like simplistic but satisfying kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
With not like all these so-called things that people might want to need, whether it's material objects or cash.
There's that too. I mean, it's a look at what your material trappings are too, where it's like, what do you? And I mean, look, I'm the wrong person to talk about that, but it's that is it, where you're just like, you could probably live a little bit simpler and work a little bit less, or you don't have to worry as much, or there's ways to make it work. But I think that's it, is just being able to like be a little bit more open with things where we're at, and like not trying to be what you are on your Instagram feed.
Yeah, exactly. Like the pressure.
Yeah, exactly. It's real too. It sounds so
those little,
fucking
weird. Those little squares.
Yeah, and it sounds sometimes you just look at it like, because I mean, I obviously like growing up, like I didn't have that, and so I look at this now, and sometimes you're just like, what? How did this happen? Like, why does this matter? But then at the same time, you're like, yeah, why does it matter? Like, but you almost kind of can't stop. But it's easy to just be like, fuck it, I'm just going to just disengage. And I think I've been doing that a bit more lately, is just disengaging, because it's stressful, and I just don't need it in my life. And I don't, and it hasn't affected me one bit. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Cool. So before we kind of wrap up, are there any shout outs, or are there any other topics that you want to discuss, or
No,
kind
I mean
of big
we can do some shout outs. I wanna shout out my agent Matt from On the Sly.
Yeah, big up Matt. We were talking about you just before. Yeah, I think you've done a great job with the agency.
If you're not familiar, On the Sly is an agency based out of Portland. We're an artist driven agency. We've got a huge, really impressive roster. Actually, I shouldn't say huge, but we've got a very impressive roster, a very diverse roster, lots of different genres, lots of people doing really interesting things. So definitely check out. I'll just plug some other stuff. My label that I run with my flatmate Jesse, Drama Hands, is a DIY label and club night. We've been a little quiet for the past while just because we're both broke, to be totally honest with you. We've got some projects that we're still kind of hoping to get out early next year. So you can go to dramahands.club. You can find all the information there. And if you're looking for me, I'm at Spurz Music on Twitter, at Spurzy on Instagram, just because social media apparently matters.
Yeah.
And then you can find me on Bandcamp. As easy as just type in SPURZ, and that's me.
Cool. So I think for everyone listening, they should be staying involved and keeping an eye out for this live set. Hopefully by the end of the year.
Yeah, hopefully.
I'm really excited to kind of see where that develops.
Yeah, there's some stuff in the works, but I don't want to give anything away yet, just in case the carpet gets pulled out. So
cool. All right. Well, look, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Stay locked, everyone. This is RSS. Big up.
Bye.